The rain hammered my windshield, each drop a cruel reminder of the life I'd lost. I curled tighter into the back seat of my old Corolla, the musty blanket barely shielding me from the cold seeping through the cracked window. My name is Sarah, and at 46, I was homeless, betrayed by the one person I'd given everything for, my son, Ethan. It wasn't always like this. 3 years ago, I had a cozy 3-bedroom house in suburban Portland, a teaching job I loved, and a son who called me his hero. Ethan was 13 then, a quiet boy with my hazel eyes and his father's stubborn streak. After my husband, David, died in a car accident when Ethan was 10, it was just us against the world. I poured every penny into Ethan's future. Music lessons, soccer camp, college savings because I believed in him. But belief can blind you. Ethan turned 16 last month, and with that milestone came a rebellion I never saw coming. He'd fallen in with a crowd I didn't trust, older kids with fast cars and faster tempers. I tried to rein him in, but he pushed back harder, his words sharp as knives. "You're suffocating me, Mom," he'd yell, slamming doors. Then came the day he crossed a line I never imagined. I'd been working late, grading papers at the kitchen table, when Ethan stormed in with a man I'd never seen, a slick real estate agent named Greg. "Mom, sign this," Ethan demanded, shoving papers at me. They were for the house. My house, the one David and I had scraped together every dime to buy. Greg spun a story about a great opportunity to sell, claiming Ethan had convinced him I was on board. I wasn't, but Ethan, my own flesh and blood, had forged my signature on preliminary documents, leveraging his status as a minor to push the sale through with Greg's shady connections. By the time I caught on, the house was gone. The money funneled into an account I couldn't access. Ethan had planned it all, seduced by promises of quick cash and a life free from my rules. I was evicted 2 weeks later. The new owners didn't care about my story. They wanted their property. I packed what I could fit into the Corolla and drove away, my heart shattered. Ethan didn't even say goodbye. He was already gone, living with Greg's crew in some downtown loft, chasing a life I couldn't understand. Now here I was, parked in an empty lot near the edge of town, my breath fogging the air. I'd lost my job too. How do you teach when you're living out of a car, showering at truck stops? I hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, surviving on gas station coffee and stale granola bars. The worst part wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was the betrayal. My son, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, had taken everything. Then came the headlights. They cut through the rain like a beacon, pinning my car in their glare. I froze, heart pounding, thinking it was a cop or worse. The driver's door opened, and a figure stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, his silhouette familiar even through the storm. It was Michael, my older brother, the one I hadn't spoken to in years. Michael was a tech mogul, a self-made millionaire who'd built an empire in Seattle. We'd grown up close, but after David's death, I'd pushed him away, too proud to admit I was struggling. He tried to help, offering money, a place to stay, but I refused every time. I wanted to prove I could do it on my own. Now, seeing him striding toward my car, umbrella in hand, I felt a mix of shame and relief. "Sarah?" His voice was rough, disbelieving, as he peered through the window. I uncurled slowly, my joints aching, and opened the door. The rain soaked me instantly, but Michael's arms were around me before I could speak, pulling me into a hug that felt like home. "What the hell happened?" he asked, his blue eyes searching mine. I tried to answer, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I sobbed, the kind of raw, ugly crying you can't hold back. Michael didn't let go. He guided me to his car, a sleek black SUV, and handed me a thermos of hot coffee. As I sipped, the warmth spreading through me, I told him everything: Ethan's betrayal, the house, the car, the shame. Michael listened, his jaw tightening with every word. When I finished, he didn't lecture or judge. He just said, You're coming with me. Now. I protested, but he cut me off. Sarah, you're my sister. I'm not letting you live like this. We drove through the night to his sprawling estate in Seattle. The house was a world away from my old life. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Puget Sound that took my breath away. Michael set me up in a guest suite with a bed so soft I cried again just lying in it. But sleep didn't come easy. My mind churned with questions. Where was Ethan? Was he safe? And how could I ever rebuild after losing so much? The next morning, Michael sat me down at his kitchen island. A spread of breakfast foods I hadn't seen in months laid out before us. I've got a plan, he said, his voice steady but fierce. We're going to get Ethan back and we're going to fix this. But first, you need a home. I stared at him, confused. Michael, I can't afford. You don't have to, he interrupted. I'm giving you a house. It's yours free and clear. No strings. He slid a set of keys across the counter, their metallic gleam catching the morning light. I couldn't speak. The weight of his kindness after everything was too much. Michael, I don't deserve this, I whispered. He leaned forward, his eyes fierce. You deserve a hell of a lot more than you've gotten, Sarah. And we're not done yet. Ethan's out there, and we're going to find him. The keys Michael gave me felt like a lifeline, but they also burned with questions I wasn't ready to face. A house, a whole house, gifted out of love, not obligation, was more than I could process. Yet, even as I gripped those keys, my thoughts spiraled back to Ethan, my son, the boy who'd shattered my world. Michael drove me to the house that afternoon. It was a modern two-story in a quiet Seattle suburb, with clean lines, a wraparound porch and windows that glowed in the late-day sun. Inside, it was furnished but not ostentatious, cozy, like a place where memories could be made. I wandered through the rooms, trailing my fingers over the granite countertops, the soft leather couch, the bookshelves waiting to be filled. It was perfect, but it felt hollow without Ethan. You'll grow into it, Michael said, reading my silence. He'd always been good at that, seeing through my walls. But we need to talk about Ethan. He's 16, Sarah. He's not gone for good. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Ethan had chosen to leave, to betray me. How do you bring back someone who doesn't want to be found? Michael, though, was already moving. He'd hired a private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla who specialized in finding runaway teens. She's the best, Michael assured me. If Ethan's in Seattle, she'll track him down. While Carla worked, Michael insisted I take steps to rebuild my life. He connected me with a friend who ran a charter school, securing me an interview for a teaching position. You're a damn good teacher, Sarah, he said. Don't let this define you. The interview went better than I expected, and by the end of the week, I had a job offer. It was part-time, but it was a start. A flicker of hope in the darkness. Still, the nights were the hardest. In the new house, surrounded by silence, I'd lie awake, replaying every moment with Ethan. Where had I gone wrong? Was it the grief after David's death? The long hours I worked to keep us afloat? Or was it simply that Ethan, at 16, had been seduced by a world that promised more than I could give? A week later, Carla called with news. She'd found Ethan living in a rundown apartment in Capitol Hill, part of a makeshift commune with Greg and his crew. They were small-time hustlers, flipping properties and running scams, using Ethan as their frontman because he was young and untraceable. My stomach churned at the thought of my son caught in that web. We need to go to him, I told Michael, my voice trembling with urgency. He hesitated. Sarah, he might not listen. He's deep in this now. I don't care, I said. He's my son. I have to try. Michael didn't argue. We drove to Capitol Hill that evening, the city lights blurring past us. The apartment was in a grimy building, its halls reeking of stale beer and cigarette smoke. Carla met us outside, her expression grim. He's in there, she said, pointing to a door on the third floor. But be careful. Greg's not the type to back down. My heart pounded as I knocked. The door creaked open, and there was Ethan. Taller than I remembered, his hair longer, his eyes shadowed. He froze when he saw me, his face a mix of defiance and guilt. "Mom!" His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised, not the stranger who'd stolen my home. "Ethan, please," I said, stepping forward. "Come home." He shook his head, backing away. "You don't get it. I'm done with your rules. I'm free here." "Free?" Michael's voice cut through, sharp and commanding. "You call living with a conman freedom? He's using you, Ethan." Greg appeared behind Ethan, a smirk on his face. "This a family reunion? You're trespassing, lady." I ignored him, my eyes locked on Ethan. "You took my house, Ethan. My home. But I'm not here to punish you. I just want you safe." For a moment, I thought I'd reached him. His eyes softened, and he opened his mouth to speak. But then Greg clapped a hand on his shoulder, and the moment was gone. "Get out," Ethan said, his voice hard again. "I don't need you." The door slammed shut, and I stumbled back, Michael catching me before I fell. Tears burned my eyes, but Michael's grip was steady. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll get him back." The drive back to Michael's house was silent, the weight of Ethan's rejection crushing me. I kept seeing his face, those fleeting moments of vulnerability drowned out by Greg's influence. Michael didn't push me to talk. He just drove, his hands tight on the wheel, his jaw set. Back at the new house, I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, the keys to this unearned gift mocking me from the coffee table. "I failed him, Michael," I said finally, my voice breaking. "I failed Ethan." "You didn't fail," Michael said, sitting across from me. "He's a kid, Sarah. Kids make mistakes. But he's not lost yet." Michael's plan was bolder than I expected. He'd already contacted a lawyer, Rachel, who specialized in real estate fraud. The sale of my house, she confirmed, was riddled with illegalities. Forged signatures, coerced documents, and Greg's shady dealings. "We can get it back," Rachel said over a video call. "Or at least make Greg pay." I didn't care about the money or the house anymore. I just wanted Ethan. But Michael saw the bigger picture. "If we take down Greg, Ethan will have nowhere to run," he said. "He'll have to face reality." Rachel filed a lawsuit against Greg, citing fraud and exploitation of a minor. Michael funded the legal battle, sparing no expense. Meanwhile, Carla kept tabs on Ethan, reporting that he was still with Greg, but starting to question his choices. "He's not eating well," she told me one day. "He looks tired. I think he's starting to see through Greg's lies." That gave me hope, but it also broke my heart. I wanted to storm back to that apartment and drag Ethan home, but Michael urged patience. "He needs to come to you," he said. "Pushing too hard will only drive him further away." So I waited, throwing myself into my new job to keep the pain at bay. Teaching again felt like rediscovering a piece of myself. My students, a mix of bright-eyed kids and troubled teens, reminded me of Ethan in small ways. A shy smile, a spark of curiosity. I started volunteering at a local youth center, hoping to understand the world Ethan had fallen into. The kids there told stories of broken homes, manipulative friends, and dreams of escape. I listened, and slowly, I began to see Ethan's rebellion not as a betrayal but as a cry for help. One night, Carla called with urgent news. "Ethan's in trouble," she said. "Greg's crew is planning something big. A property scam involving a fake deed. Ethan's name is on it." My blood ran cold. "He's 16, I said. "They can't pin that on him." "They can and they will," Carla replied. "Greg's setting him up to take the fall." Michael was already on the phone with Rachel, who worked through the night to file an emergency injunction. The next morning, we met with a detective, a no-nonsense woman named Torres, who'd been tracking Greg's crew for months. "If we move fast," she said, "we can catch them in the act and pull Ethan out." The plan was risky. Torres needed evidence, which meant letting the scam play out just long enough to trap Greg. Ethan would be in the room when it happened, and there was a chance he'd get caught in the fallout. I hated the idea, but Michael was resolute. "We're saving him, Sarah, even if it hurts." The sting was set for a downtown office where Greg was meeting his buyers. Torres wired Carla, who posed as an investor, while Michael and I waited in an unmarked van nearby. My heart pounded as I listened to the audio feed, Carla's calm voice mingling with Greg's slick pitch. Then I heard Ethan, his voice shaky, unsure. "This is legit, right?" he asked. Greg laughed, dismissive. "Kid, just do what I say." I clenched my fists, praying Ethan would walk away. But he didn't. Not yet. The deal went south fast. Torres's team burst in, shouting orders. I heard Ethan's voice, panicked, calling for Greg. Then silence. Michael squeezed my hand. "He's okay," he whispered, but I couldn't breathe until I saw him. When they brought Ethan out, handcuffed but unharmed, I ran to him. His eyes were wide, terrified, but when he saw me, he didn't pull away. "Mom," he whispered, and that one word broke me all over again. Ethan sat across from me in the police station, his hands still trembling from the cuffs they'd just removed. He wouldn't meet my eyes, his gaze fixed on the table, but I could see the shame etched into his face. At 16, he looked both too young and too old, caught between the boy I'd raised and the stranger he'd become. Torres explained the situation. Greg and his crew were in custody, facing charges of fraud, forgery, and exploitation of a minor. Ethan, as a juvenile, wouldn't face the same consequences, but he'd need to cooperate. "He's lucky," Torres said, her voice firm but not unkind. "If he testifies, he might walk away with community service." I nodded, but my focus was on Ethan. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you do it?" He flinched, his shoulders hunching. I thought I could be someone," he mumbled. "Greg said I was smart, that I could make real money. I didn't want to be stuck in that house with your rules, your everything." His words stung, but I swallowed the hurt. "You were enough, Ethan. You didn't need to prove anything." He finally looked at me, his eyes wet. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know it would go this far." Michael, standing by the door, cleared his throat. "We're getting you out of here, kid. But you've got work to do." The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and therapy sessions. Ethan moved into the new house with me, though the space between us felt like a chasm. He was quiet, withdrawn, haunted by what he'd done. I wanted to fix him, to erase the guilt, but I knew it would take time. Michael, true to form, didn't let either of us wallow. He enrolled Ethan in a mentorship program for at-risk teens, led by a former hacker turned counselor named Jamal. "He'll get through to him," Michael promised. "Give it time." Meanwhile, Rachel's lawsuit moved forward. Greg's crew had crumbled under pressure, turning on each other to cut deals. The house, my house, was tied up in legal limbo, but Rachel was confident we'd recover damages. "It's not just about the money," she said. "It's about justice." Justice felt distant, though. What I wanted was my son back, not just in body but in spirit. I started small, cooking his favorite meals, lasagna, chocolate chip pancakes, hoping to coax him out of his shell. Sometimes he'd smile, a flicker of the old Ethan, but other times he'd retreat to his room, lost in his thoughts. One evening, as I washed dishes, Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mom," he said, his voice hesitant. "Can we talk?" I dried my hands, my heart racing. We sat on the porch, the Seattle sky streaked with pink and orange. Ethan told me about Greg, how he'd promised freedom, money, a life where Ethan could be big. "I thought I was helping us," he said. "I thought you'd be proud." "I was always proud," I said, my voice catching. "But you scared me, Ethan. I thought I'd lost you." He hugged me then, his arms tight around me, and for the first time in months, I felt hope. It wasn't a fix, not yet, but it was a start. Michael, ever the strategist, had more plans. He'd been quietly working with Jamal to create a scholarship fund for teens like Ethan, Kids who'd made mistakes but wanted a second chance. "You're not just rebuilding your life, Sarah," he told me one day. "You're building something bigger." I wasn't sure I believed him, but I wanted to. The new house was starting to feel like home, with Ethan's sneakers by the door and my books on the shelves. I began teaching full-time, my students' energy a daily reminder of why I'd chosen this path. But the shadow of Greg's trial loomed, and I knew Ethan would have to face his past before he could move forward. The courtroom was colder than I expected, the air heavy with anticipation. Ethan sat beside me, his hands folded tightly in his lap, his face pale as he waited to testify. I wanted to shield him from this, but Rachel had been clear. His testimony was key to dismantling Greg's operation. Greg sat across the room, his smugness gone, replaced by a nervous twitch. Ethan's voice, when he took the stand, was steady but soft. He recounted how Greg had groomed him, exploiting his anger and grief to pull him into the scam. "I thought I was in control," Ethan said, his eyes flicking to me. "But I was just a pawn." Hearing him say it broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride. He was owning his mistakes, facing the consequences. The jury listened intently, and when Ethan stepped down, I squeezed his hand. "You did good," I whispered. The trial lasted 3 days, each one a test of my strength. Michael was there every day, his presence a quiet anchor. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts for Greg, I felt a weight lift, but not fully. Ethan's community service sentence was light, a chance to rebuild, but the real work was at home. Back in the new house, Ethan started opening up. He'd been meeting with Jamal weekly, and the mentorship was working. "Jamal gets it," Ethan told me one night, as we ate pizza on the couch. "He did dumb stuff when he was my age, too. He says I can start over." "You can," I said. "And I'm here no matter what." Michael's scholarship fund launched that month, with Ethan as its first recipient. The fund offered coding classes, job training, and counseling for teens who'd veered off track. Ethan threw himself into it, learning to code with a focus I hadn't seen in years. Watching him at the computer, his brow furrowed in concentration, I saw glimpses of the boy who'd once dreamed of building his own video games. But healing wasn't linear. Some days Ethan would snap, frustrated by the weight of his guilt. "I don't deserve this," he'd say, gesturing at the house, the program me. I'd remind him that love isn't about deserving. It's about showing up. Michael, too, was changing. He'd always been driven, but helping us had softened him. He started spending more time at the house, joining us for dinners, laughing at Ethan's terrible puns. One night, he pulled me aside. "I've been thinking," he said. "I want to fund a community center like the one you volunteer at. A place for kids like Ethan to go before they get lost." I stared at him, overwhelmed. "Michael, you've already done so much." He shrugged, a rare vulnerability in his eyes. "You're my family, Sarah. I should have been there sooner." The community center became Michael's new mission, and he roped me in to help design it. We envisioned a space with art rooms, tech labs, and counselors trained to spot kids like Ethan before they fell too far. Ethan, to my surprise, wanted to help, offering ideas for the tech programs. "I want to make sure no one else gets suckered like I did," he said. As winter settled over Seattle, the house felt warmer, filled with small moments of connection. Ethan helping with dishes, Michael teaching him to grill, the three of us watching old movies on the couch. The lawsuit wrapped up with damages awarded to me, enough to secure the house and start a college fund for Ethan. But the real victory was in the quiet moments, the ones where Ethan smiled without reservation, where I felt like a mother again. Still, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Ethan's guilt lingered, and so did my fear of losing him again. But we were together in a home built on love and second chances, and that was enough for now. Spring brought new beginnings, but also new challenges. Ethan was thriving in the mentorship program, his coding skills blooming under Jamal's guidance. He'd even started building a simple app, something to help teens find local resources. But beneath his progress, I sensed a restlessness, a fear that he hadn't earned this second chance. One afternoon, I found him in his room, staring at a photo of him and David from years ago, taken at a soccer game. "I wish Dad could see me now," he said, his voice barely audible. "He'd be so ashamed." I sat beside him, touching the photo. "Your dad loved you, Ethan. He'd be proud you're trying." He shook his head. "I stole your house, Mom. I hurt you. How do I make that right?" I didn't have an easy answer, but I told him the truth. "You make it right by living better, by being the person you want to be." That conversation sparked something in Ethan. He started volunteering at the youth center with me, talking to kids who reminded him of himself. His honesty, raw and unfiltered, connected with them in a way I couldn't. One girl, a 14-year-old named Mia, clung to Ethan's words about second chances. "You're like a big brother," she told him, and I saw him light up in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. Michael's community center was taking shape, a sleek building with murals painted by local teens. Ethan's app was integrated into the center's resources, helping kids find mentors and programs. At the opening ceremony, Michael gave a speech, crediting Ethan and me for inspiring the project. "Family isn't just blood," he said, looking at us. "It's the people who show up when you've got nothing left." Ethan spoke next, his voice nervous but clear. "I messed up big," he told the crowd. "But I'm here because my mom and my uncle didn't give up on me. This place is for anyone who needs a second shot." The crowd applauded, and I cried, not from sadness but from pride. Ethan was finding his way back, not just to me but to himself. But life, as always, had its tests. A letter arrived from Greg's lawyer offering a deal. If Ethan retracted his testimony, Greg could appeal for a lighter sentence. The letter was manipulative, playing on Ethan's guilt, and it shook him. "What if I made it worse for him?" he asked me, clutching the paper. "You told the truth," I said. "That's what matters." Greg made his choices. Michael stepped in, arranging a meeting with Rachel to reinforce Ethan's resolve. "You're not responsible for Greg's fate," she told him. "You're responsible for your own." Ethan tore up the letter, but the doubt lingered. He threw himself into the community center, working late hours, as if proving his worth could erase the past. I worried he was pushing too hard, but Jamal reassured me. "He's finding purpose," he said. "Let him run with it." As summer approached, Ethan started talking about college, something I hadn't dared hope for. He wanted to study computer science, maybe build apps to help people. "I want to make something good," he said. "Something that lasts." I hugged him, my heart full. "You already are." Michael, meanwhile, was becoming a fixture in our lives. He'd taken to hosting barbecues at the house, inviting friends and colleagues who became like extended family. One night, as we watched Ethan joke with Jamal over burgers, Michael pulled me aside. "You did this, Sarah," he said. "You brought him back." "No," I said. "We did. You gave us a home, Michael. Not just a house. A home." He smiled, a rare softness in his eyes. "Worth every penny." By fall, the community center was thriving, a beacon for kids across Seattle. Ethan was its unofficial ambassador, mentoring younger teens and teaching coding workshops. His app had grown, now used by youth centers across the state, and he'd even caught the eye of a tech startup offering him an internship. At 17, he was building a future I'd once feared he'd never have. But healing is a marathon, not a sprint. Some nights, Ethan would wake up shouting from nightmares about Greg, about the house, about the choices he'd made. I'd sit with him, holding his hand, reminding him he was home. Therapy helped, but so did the community center, where he found purpose in helping others avoid his mistakes. I found my own rhythm, too. Teaching full-time filled my days with meaning, and volunteering at the center gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since David's death. The house Michael gave us was now truly ours, filled with photos, books, and memories we were still making. Ethan's laughter echoed through the halls again, and though the scars of the past remained, they were fading. Michael's role in our lives had shifted. He wasn't just the savior who'd pulled me from my car. He was family in the truest sense. He'd started dating a kind woman named Laura, a therapist who worked at the center, and her presence softened him further. At our Thanksgiving dinner, the table groaned under the weight of food, and Michael raised a glass. To second chances, he said, looking at Ethan and me. To family, I added, and Ethan clinked his glass against mine, his smile bright. The lawsuit money came through, enough to pay off the house and fund Ethan's college. But the real wealth was in the life we'd rebuilt. Ethan was accepted into a computer science program at the University of Washington, his eyes gleaming with possibility. "I'm going to make you proud, Mom," he said, and I told him he already had. One crisp morning, as we walked to the community center, Ethan stopped me. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice steady, "for everything. I know I can't undo it, but I'm trying to make it right." I hugged him, tears in my eyes. "You already have, Ethan. You're here." As we stood there, the sun breaking through the Seattle clouds, I thought of the night Michael found me in my car, broken and lost. That moment felt like a lifetime ago. We'd been through betrayal, pain, and redemption, but we'd come out stronger. The house, the center, Ethan's dreams. They were all part of a new chapter, one we'd written together. Michael joined us, his SUV pulling up with Laura in the passenger seat. "Ready to change some lives?" he called, grinning. Ethan laughed, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "Let's do it." And as we walked toward the center, the future stretched out before us. Imperfect, but ours. A family rebuilt, not by money or houses, but by love, forgiveness, and the courage to start again.